Pretty gross, isn't it? Why does God, who's all powerful, all knowing, why does he allow this to happen? I mean, that's just unbelievable that in our world we have that going on. And that's why the book of Job was written, to answer this question. How can a God who loves us, who has such hopes for us, who forgives us, allow that to happen in this world? Why do bad things happen to good people? This is your turn to say, answer that. Why do bad things happen to good people? Any ideas? How about some people say life is just random? There's nothing you can do about it. Just, that's just what happens. It's all random. Stuff happens. You just have to try harder. That's what you need to do, is just try harder. If you only did this, you wouldn't have these bad things happening to you. Or God has a plan. Don't worry, God's got a plan for you, and that's why all these bad things are happening to you. God is doing all these bad things to you. Famous one is when God closes a door, he opens another one. That's not necessarily true. Often it is, if you look. But these are all things, excuses given for when bad things happen to good people. That very good teacher who cares about the students, who you really like, gets sick. We know God made the world and called it good. We know God forgives us and calls us to repentance for our sins and all the bad things we do. But sometimes reality doesn't look good enough or great or loving or merciful. Sometimes bad things happen. Really bad things. They got another hurricane coming in. Can you imagine they're in their third major hurricane down in the Louisiana area? I lived down there for 9 months while I was going to school. Those people are, it's just terrible. They haven't even rebuilt their house, and it's been torn down 3 times. And it doesn't seem fair. How do we explain evil in a world that God made good? Good question. So they wrote the book of Job. Some people say that it was Moses who wrote it. Some people say it was Job himself who wrote it. The one thing you have to understand, though, is this is a fictional thing. This is not written about this is not a history thing where Job was born and
you can call it a parable.
A parable.
It's a story that has a lesson in it.
Right. So just so you understand that. Okay, let's see if I can get the next video going. I don't want to over video you, but.
So Dick, you're going to have the answer for us by the end, right?
I'm sure I'll have the answer. I'll tell you the truth. I'll have the answer. And if it solves all these problems, I won't be in this congregation very long because they're going to send me right away up to the seminary
Yeah.
And I'll be the professor there if I can find the answer. Obviously, I'm not, but we'll see what we come up with.
And now it's time to delve into the Collaborate Mailbag, where we read questions from Christians just like you and answer them in under 3 minutes. Dear Collaborate, why do bad things happen to good people? Sincerely, every person who has ever lived. That's an excellent question, every person who has ever lived. Many people have a hard time figuring out that mystery on their own. Fortunately for us, the book of Job is all about that exact question. Job was a good and righteous man. He had a large, loving family. He served God. He was rich. Then, one day, all of Job's livestock died. Job's house was destroyed. Job's children were inside that house. Then Job's health failed. He was covered in boils and was in tremendous amounts of pain. So great was Job's suffering, he lamented the day he was born. Let's just give Job some space. One might wonder, where was God during all of this? What exactly was God's role? Does God directly do good and bad things to us? Or perhaps God just set certain things into motion, which cause things to happen, things that are sometimes good and sometimes bad. Maybe God is not involved in things happening at all. Perhaps God just cheers us on from the sidelines as events unfold. Another question is whether God can see into the future. Can God prevent bad things from happening to us? And when God does not prevent bad things from happening, is it because God cannot prevent them, or because God does not want to? Or is it not God's job to protect us at all? To answer these questions, let us look to the end of Job's story. When God appeared before Job, at last the Almighty had come and was going to answer this burning question. And God answers this question with a question. God said, I made everything that exists. The heavens, the earth, plants, animals, whole universes. Even you, Job. So who are you to question anything I do? So there you have it, kids. Thanks for writing, and keep those letters coming.
Guess what? That wasn't much of an answer. Not at all. Not at all. I'm going to delve into Job, the book of Job. You will not have to do any reading tonight.
Oh.
I'm having, you can read along with me, which I encourage, but it bounces all over. Because I found someone reading the book of Job, and it took an hour and 40 minutes to read the whole book. We're not going to stay here that long reading. My throat will not take that much. Okay, the book of Job, such as it is. There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had many servants, He was, in fact, the richest person in the whole area. One day the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, Satan, came with them. "Where have you come from?" the Lord asked Satan. Satan answered the Lord, "I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on." Then the Lord asked Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil." Satan replied to the Lord, "Yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You have made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is, but reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." "All right, you may test him," the Lord said to Satan. "Do whatever you want with everything he possesses, and don't harm him physically." So Satan left the Lord's presence. So, what's happened? Here. There's this great guy, what's his name, Job? And Job is doing really great. And Satan meets up with God and says, "Well, you're just protecting him. You're doing it for him. Let's take everything away and see just how much he likes you, God." So one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting at the oldest brother's house, a messenger arrived at Job's home with this news: "Your oxen were plowing with the donkeys, feeding beside them, when the Sabians," which is another country, "raided us. They stole all the animals and killed all the farmhands. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Uh-oh. While he was speaking, another messenger arrived with this news: "The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up your sheep and all the shepherds. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was speaking, a third messenger arrived with this news: "3 bands of Chaldean raiders have stolen your camels and killed your servants. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with the news: "Your sons and daughters were feasting in their oldest brother's home. Suddenly a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness and hit the house on all sides. The house collapsed, and all your children are dead. I am the only one who escaped to tell you." Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. He said, "I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord." So it doesn't sound like he's real upset. I mean, he's upset, but he's not saying, "Oh God, I'm not going to believe in you anymore." He says, all this has happened, but God gave me everything, and so God can take it away. So one day, the members of the heavenly court came again to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser Satan came with them. "Where have you come from?" the Lord asked Satan. Satan answered the Lord, "I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on." Then the Lord asked Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil, and he has maintained his integrity, even though you urge me to harm him without cause." Satan replied to the Lord, "Skin for skin. A man will give up everything he has to save his life. But reach out and take away his health, and he will surely curse you to your face." "All right, do with him as you please," the Lord said to Satan, "but spare his life." So Satan left the Lord's presence, and he struck Job with terrible boils from head to foot. Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job replied, "You talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad?" So in all this, Job said nothing wrong. Well, then he has 3 friends who come because they hear he's having some bad times. It's good to have friends to come over and help you. But maybe not these 3 friends. So Job gets very upset. He says, "Why wasn't I born dead? Why didn't I die as I came from the womb? Why was I laid on my mother's lap? Why did she nurse me at her breasts? Had I died at birth, I would now be at peace. I would be asleep and at rest. I would rest with the world's kings and prime ministers, whose great buildings now lie in ruins. I would rest with princes rich in gold, whose palaces were filled with silver. Why wasn't I buried like a stillborn child, like a baby who never lives to see the light?" He sounds like he's a little down, a little depressed right now, right? So then his friend Eliphaz talks to Job. And he says, "Will you be patient and let me say a word? For who could keep from speaking out? In the past, you have encouraged many people. You have strengthened those who were weak. Your words have supported those who were falling. You encouraged those with shaky knees. But now, when trouble strikes, you lose heart. You are terrified when it touches you. Doesn't your reverence for God give you confidence? Doesn't your life of integrity give you hope?" If you're in that shape, you've lost everything, you lost your family, here you are, and your friend comes over and says, "Hey, what's wrong with you? You know, you should be grateful. You should have hope. Don't get depressed just because you've lost everything and all your family." And it's just, a nice friend. Instead of a friend saying, "Hey, what's wrong?" Being compassionate. The friend is just getting on his case. Okay, we'll skip a little ways here. We don't want to be here for an hour and a half reading this, obviously. And Eliphaz continues, "If I were you, I would go to God and present my case to him. He does great things too marvelous to understand. He performs countless miracles. He gives rain for the earth and water for the fields. He gives prosperity to the poor and protects those who suffer. He frustrates the plans of schemers so the work of their hands will not succeed. He traps the wise in their own cleverness so their cunning schemes are thwarted. They find it is dark in the daytime and grope at noon if it were night. He rescues the poor from the cutting words of the strong and rescues them from the clutches of the powerful. And so at last the poor have hope, and the snapping jaws of the wicked are shut. But consider the joy of those corrected by God. Do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin." So obviously he's saying, "Hey, Job, you sinned." Now Job
What did you do to deserve this?
yeah, what did you do to, it's your fault somehow. This happened to you and it's your fault. Nice friend. So. Okay. Then Job turns to Eliphaz, says, "One should be kind to a fainting friend, but you accuse me without any fear of the Almighty. My brothers, who have proved as unreliable as a seasonal brook that overflows its banks in the spring when it is swollen with ice and melting snow. But when the hot weather arrives, the water disappears. the brook vanishes in the heat. So he's saying, hey, you're good friends for me now that I'm having problems. What are you doing? All you do is criticize me. You're saying, okay, what'd you do wrong? See, you should be asking for forgiveness for what you did, for all this thing to happen to you. Job says, I am innocent. It makes no difference to me. I despise my life. Innocent or wicked, it is all the same to God. That's why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a plague sweeps through, he laughs at the death of the innocent. Sounds like COVID. The whole earth is in the hands of the wicked, and God blinds the eyes of the judges. If he's not the one who does it, who is? Good question. So his friend Zophar says, shouldn't someone answer this torrent of words? Is a person proved innocent just by a lot of talking? Should I remain silent while you babble on? Nice, his friend's, on his case. When you mock God, shouldn't someone make you ashamed? You claim, my beliefs are pure, and I am clean in the sight of God. If only God would speak, if only he would tell you what he thinks. If only he could tell you the secrets of wisdom, for true wisdom is not a simple matter. Listen, God is doubtlessly punishing you far less than you deserve. Poor Job. His friends are giving him such bad advice. And Job says, you people really know everything, don't you? And when you die, wisdom will die with you. He's being sarcastic. Well, I know a few things myself, and you're no better than I am. Who doesn't know those things you've been saying? Yet my friends laugh at me, for I call on God and expect an answer. I am just and blameless, yet they laugh at me. People who are at ease mock those in trouble. They give a push to people who are stumbling. But robbers are left in peace, and those who provoke God, live in safety, though God keeps them in his power. God can control all these bad people, but he doesn't do anything about it. What are you doing, God? Getting back to this question, why does God allow all these things? And Job wants to argue his case with God. He says, Job asked God, how has he sinned? Now summon me and I will answer, or let me speak to you, and you reply. Tell me, what have I done wrong? Show me my rebellion and my sin. Why do you turn away from me? Why do you treat me as your enemy? He's asking God. Job is. And Eliphaz says, a wise man wouldn't answer that with such empty talk. You are nothing but a windbag. Nice. So Job there says, I have heard all this before. What miserable comforters you are. Won't you ever stop blowing hot air? What makes you keep on talking? I could say the same things if you were in my place. I could spout off criticism and shake my head at you. But if it were me, I would encourage you and would try to take away your grief. Instead, I suffer if I defend myself, and I suffer no less if I refuse to speak. So Job is really, he's lost everything, and even his friends now are on his case. He's lost them as friends. But Job says, "But as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he will stand upon the earth at last. And after my body has decayed, yet in my body I will see God. I will see him for myself. Yes, I will see him with my own eyes. I am overwhelmed at the thought. How dare you go on persecuting me, saying, 'It's his own fault'? You should fear punishment yourselves, for your attitude deserves punishment. Then you will know that there is indeed a judgment." So Job's in really a bad place right now. He has no one who is comforting him, helping him. All they do is accuse him of being really, really, really sinful person, even though they can't point to anything that they know of where he has sinned. And he says, "My conscience is clear for as long as I live. I have been faithful to God. Finally, Job says to God, "I made a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust at a young woman. For what has God above chosen for us? What is our inheritance from the Almighty on high? Isn't it calamity for the wicked and misfortune for those who do evil? Doesn't he see everything I do and every step I take? Have I lied to anyone or deceived anyone? Let God weigh me on the scales of justice, for he knows my integrity." So finally, Job is saying, "Come on, show me, what have I done wrong?" So finally, he says, "God, why aren't you doing something about this?" This is something that people have been saying through history. Why aren't you doing something about this, God? Then the Lord answered him from the whirlwind. "Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much, who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? What supports its foundations, and who laid its cornerstone? As the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy, who kept the sea inside its boundaries as it burst from the womb, and as I clothed it with clouds and wrapped it with thick darkness? For I locked it behind barred gates, limiting its shores. I said, 'This far and no farther will you come. Here your proud waves must stop.' Have you ever commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise in the east? Have you made daylight spread to the ends of the earth, or bring an end to the night's wickedness? As your light approaches the earth, take shape like clay pressed beneath a seal. It is robed in brilliant colors. The light disturbs the wicked and stops the arm that is raised in violence." God goes on and on and on. Who created a channel for the torrents of rain? Does the rain have a father? Who gives the birth to the dew? Who is the mother of the ice? He's asking Job. You seem to think that you know everything. Because you know everything, you can question my judgment. Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do anything, and no one can stop you. You asked, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I, and I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me. You said, listen, and I will speak. I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen you with my own eyes. I take back everything I said, and I sit in dust and ashes to show my repentance. So then the Lord blessed Job. When Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. In fact, the Lord gave him twice as much as before. Then all his brothers, sisters, and former friends came and feasted with him in his home. And they consoled him and comforted him because of all the trials the Lord had brought against him. And each of them brought him a gift of money and a gold ring. So the Lord blessed Job in the second half of his life, even more than in the beginning. For now he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 teams of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also gave Job 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. He named his first daughter Jeremiah, the second Keziah, and the third Karen Hapoch. In the end, the land, in all the land, no women were as lovely as the daughters of Job, and their father put them into his will along with their brothers. Job lived 140 years after that, living to see 4 generations of his children and grandchildren. Then he died as an old man who had lived a long, full life. Sounds like a story you'd read in a book or something. This is a book. Okay. Throughout the book of Job, we're trying to, the friends, I should say, of Job, engage in a dialogue that attempts to unpack the mystery of what has happened. After all, if God let this happen to him, didn't that mean that things had happened fairly? Doesn't life reflect how we're pleasing God? Does your life reflect how you're pleasing God? Do you believe that? If you please God, you have a good life. What's the other side of that? If you if you're not pleasing God, what happens? Do you believe? Well, see, that's what this says. That's what's insinuating, is that you've got to do all these things for God, you know. You got to be on your knees praying all the time. And you've got to be, you know, you have to follow all these rules. What was it, 500 and some rules that the Israelis had, the Hebrews had, that if you went into church or into temple without a covering on, they'd stone you. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. If you had...
Can I say a modern day example?
Sure.
So, you know, it's easy to come down on Job's friends for doing the wrong thing. But I sometimes I can understand where they're coming from. Because when bad things happen, I want to understand why. And so I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had several friends who, when they tell someone that someone's been diagnosed with lung cancer, the first thing they say is, were they a smoker? Because we want to understand why this bad thing happened to that person. You know, if it's because they're a smoker, then I'm going to be okay. And I think there's a little bit of that going on with Job's friends, right? They want to understand, well, there's got to be a reason that all of this is happening to Job, and as long as I don't do that, I'll be okay. And if I know what he's doing wrong, then I can protect myself and the people and the things that I love. So if I believe the right way, and I act the right way, and I pray the right way, maybe God will be good to me. And there are times when you'll hear that kind of belief creeping into our belief system, but is that really how we believe God is? Does God sit with a checklist saying, oh, there's a +1 in Pastor Gloria's column, there's a bad thing she did, and is God constantly keeping score? I hope not. For my sake, I hope not.
Yeah, if God's keeping score, we're in deep trouble.
Yeah, because I'm going to come up short every time.
That's right. And the story has less to do with the characters in the story, because it's just fiction, or, a myth, or whatever you want to call a parable. But it's wrestling with the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Or, to take it a step further, why do bad things happen at all? Why do bad things happen? All God would have to do is say, oh, like this, and everything would be great. We wouldn't have to worry about all. We wouldn't have disease, we wouldn't have people on our, being bullies, it'd be just fantastic. All God has got to do is take some control of this whole thing, this whole mess we call Earth.
So how would you respond to somebody if they asked you that?
Yeah. Why do bad things happen?
Or where is God when bad things happen?
Yeah, where's God? Is he over in the corner playing golf? He's what? God is in us. No, that's very insightful, really. I've seen a meme on Facebook once, where one man says to another, he says, why isn't God doing something about this? And the other person turns to him and says, why aren't you doing something about this? God did not put us here to soak up everything and then we die. It's like holding your breath. If you hold your breath, take it in and you hold it, let's see, just for a couple of seconds. I'll tell you when to let go. You can let go now. You can take in the breath because you need that oxygen. But you've got to give out. You can't just be taking, you've got to give in life. That's one of the core things. That's why do we have bullies? Is it because God doesn't want, says, oh, that's okay to have bullies. It's because we allow bullies. I've been a bully in some situations. I always like to point fingers at other people, but then when I do that, people remind me there's actually one going this way, and this one's coming back at me when I do this. So, bad things happen to good and bad people. And life can be very hard. These are truths that will always be present in our lives. Yet we live under the grace and love of God. And that is the ultimate answer to all of our questions. In this mystery and struggle, one that we bump up against time and time again, we are brought into a deeper relationship with God. Let me explain that. When you have a problem, you've got to start thinking about it. Why is this happening to me? How should I respond to it? I'm going to pray. I don't know how many times before a tough test I've prayed in my life. But you don't pray otherwise. If everything's going right, you don't pray. I don't pray. I don't sit around all day saying, well, things are going great, let me pray to God. But when something bad happens or is going to happen, I'm there praying, saying, God, please, let that bill for fixing my car not be as big as it could be. If Job's friends tell us anything, it's that well-intentioned bad advice is still bad advice. Test your sources of comfort in difficult times against your own faith and previous experience. What do we know about God? How can that answer our questions? Are you doing the right thing? What do you know about the way we're supposed to be doing things that Jesus said we were supposed to be? What it says in, in writing here. Some things don't have complete answers in life. You're not going to get an answer that satisfies you for everything. There's no guarantee, there's no contract when you're born that says that your parents sign. Just like they don't get a book that says, here's how you be a parent. You may buy something at the store, but one doesn't come automatically with you. And the ones in the store are not always that great anyhow. And not everything in life ends with us feeling comforted. And that's okay. When I hear someone say it's not fair, what happened to me is not fair. Why did God do it? This isn't fair. Remember that thing at the start where all those kids, is it fair for them to be somewhere where they're in the middle of a war? Where some of them are injured, some are killed, the parents losing their children. Is that fair? Questions. What questions do you have? Comments. Just don't throw anything. So, what do we take away from this? So what? I always like to say that at the very end, so what? We've gone through this now for about 45 minutes. So what? So what if Job had these problems? So what if it's a parable? What do we, so what? How does that affect me? That's the question you really need to think about, is when bad things happen. So what? Why? How should you react? I didn't want to leave you with a negative feeling.
The other question I asked too is, how can I be a better friend than Job's friends? When someone I care about is going through a hard time.
Yeah, how can you be a better friend? How could you be a better friend? If someone's having a real problem, how can you be a better friend?
Be beside them.
Be beside them, is that what you said? Yep, be beside them. They say if someone is grieving because of a death, one of the best things you can do is just be there. You don't have to talk to them.
Be with them.
Just be with them.
Yep.
Just be with them.
Create a safe place for them to say whatever they're feeling, to be angry, to be sad, to laugh, be with them.